This program is brought to you by Emory University.
I've got the kind of agenda for today here. So we've introduced the course. We're talking about what box sync is, and I'll go over just really quickly how to get the installation. Then, very importantly, where am I? So, as I mentioned, it's sometimes hard to figure out um, whether you're in online or whether you're on box sync on your desktop. We'll talk about how files synchronize and more importantly, how they don't, because that's the gotcha sometimes, is situations and cases when they don't synchronize and you might have expected them to. Editing documents in box sync. Of course, we don't just want to store documents, we want to be able to work with them. The collaboration features that you have locally in box sync. But we still want to remind everyone that just because you're using box sync does not eliminate the use or the need for the online version of box, because that's still very powerful and that's where all of your really extended functionality is in terms of collaborative features. We'll talk a little bit about the applications that are available for mobile devices, and then, like I said, we will go over some permissions and specific examples of use cases that you have with the different roles. And then I'll just point to some resources as well, and any links that I have, I'll also provide in an email afterwards. So this is our agenda for today. All right, so normally what we would do, we would log into Box online, particularly if you don't have BoxSync installed yet, you do have to log in online. To do that, you go to emory.box.com or the longer URL, emory.app.box.com. You go ahead and log in. So this is what BoxSync looks like. Now, of course, more familiar will be this view, and I am going to increase the sort of view a little bit on my browser, just so that you can like view it a little bit more comfortably. But we are going to look at both Box uh, Box Sync locally and also Box Online. So this is what Box Online looks like, right? And then to get to your, actually I do need to open this up a little bit. To get to where you can install Box Sync, the application, you go under your name, which is where your profile is, and just click on Get Box Sync. It's going to take you to a page that will know that you are using a Mac or Windows. It will give you a link to download Box Sync. You run the installer just like any other software application, and then you'll suddenly have a Box Sync folder that you can then add to. I'm not gonna, because I already have Box Sync installed, I'm not going to go through the install. But when you do finally have Box Sync installed, I'll show you what that looks like. So let me minimize this again a little bit so we can see both online cloud and Box Sync on my desktop. So once you have the Box Sync software installed, you will get a folder called Box Sync. This is the same for Mac, it's the same for Windows. You can rename this folder, which I did initially, but honestly, it is, to me, it seems more helpful to just leave it named Box Sync, because I always know that these are the files that are synchronizing up to the cloud. And so I have gone back to just leaving it the way it was as originally intended. So here's Box Sync. In Windows, you'll see I don't have Windows installed on my computer, but I do have some screenshots. We can see what it looks like on Windows. And this is really tiny for you, I know, so I'm opening this up. So in Windows, you'll have a Box Sync folder that also appears, and you can add it to your favorites as well. The nice thing about the Box Sync application is that it functions almost identically in both Windows and Mac. The look is a little bit different, but they do function very, very similarly. So on the Mac, you've got your Box Sync area, and the way you get files into here is just like anything else you do in the Mac Finder or Windows Explorer. You drag items to it. You download it through email attachments. You create a file in Word or Excel and you save it to this folder. You can always tell when a file is saved within BoxSync because they will have these little blue check marks. There are other possibilities for these indicators. One is orange, and that means that it's currently syncing. One is gray, and that means that there's an error that it's not able to sync. But it's really interesting. In the last few updates that they've made to BoxSync, I have not been seeing that gray error at all. So they've really improved the ability to upload different file formats, to recognize different file versions, to even recognize diacritical characters and spaces in names, which was giving the older versions of Box quite a bit of trouble. So on the Mac, you'll see that you also have an indicator or a connection to BoxSync up in your Finder, this little area of the Finder that's got all these little icons and drop-down menus. This I learned was called the extras, the menu extras area of the Mac Finder. But you've got this little lowercase b, and that is your BoxSync kind of shortcut. So Box in Windows and on the Mac should be running all the time unless you have specifically disabled it. On the Mac, you would go to Preferences and you can just turn it on and off. You can look at your settings so that you know what the default folder location is for BoxSync, and you can log out if you need to. If you shut down your computer, if you put it to sleep, your BoxSync should always stay on. Now, if you are not seeing the little blue check marks, then you are disconnected somehow. So it might be that it's on and it's enabled, but you are not connected to the internet. So you do have to be connected to the internet to be able to synchronize these documents. You can work with any documents offline. Then the next time you get online, they will synchronize for you. But just keep in mind that if you are working offline in a lot of different locations, that is the easiest way to get out of sync, because the only way that BoxSync can synchronize to the cloud version is for obviously for you to have an internet connection. The last thing I wanted to mention about just the install process is that Box is a very agile software development company, and they are constantly updating the software in good ways. So it's not like these frustrating updates that give you, that change your interface all the time, but they'll be adding features, they'll be adding stability, and little by little you'll notice how much it improves over time. You want to keep BoxSync up to date, and you'll be prompted to update it. So you don't have to worry about that, but definitely do run the updates when you are prompted. So that's essentially BoxSync installation and just showing you indicating how you know that you're in BoxSync. All right, so the next section is where am I? One of the most important things about using BoxSync once you've made the commitment is to really have a clear sense of where you're working, because where you're working really impacts how these files are synchronized and what information is saved. So I've tried to do this through a kind of a split screen setup here. I've got my online connection to Box here on the left. It looks a little different because I've minimized the screen a bit, so you are used to seeing it like this, where you have your favorites and your profile and everything. But you get the idea. This is my Box, emorybox.com online, right? I have to use a web browser to get to it. I have to log in with my NetID and password, but I see many of the same files and folders that I see here. So you have Academic Affairs Registrar, I have Academic Affairs Registrar on my BoxSync. Admissions, admissions, and so forth. So on the right, this window is my BoxSync folder. This is not the software, but it is where the software has installed an area for you to save documents. So all this is a folder, even though it's named BoxSync, It's not the application itself. This is the application itself, right? And in Windows, it might look something like this. Same idea. You've got folders, they've got blue check marks, or they've got, Carlos actually caught it while it was syncing. It's got an orange little circle of arrows that shows you that indicates that it's synchronizing. So they look similar in terms of their own operating systems. All right, so this, just like Box Online, like I said, you've got your blue check marks. But one way to know the difference is that, when you're using a browser, you are online. When you are using your desktop, you are using Box Sync. So how files synchronize, and more importantly, how they don't sometimes. When you are working locally on your desktop, and you create a folder here. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. Actually, we'll create a new folder. Actually, what we'll do is create a new folder on the desktop, and we'll just call it test folder. And so it shows up right on the first page. I'm going to call it a test folder. I'm going to drag that into Box. And you didn't see a little orange, did you? But you do see these arrows up here indicating that it is synchronizing. The thing is something so small like that is so quickly synchronized that you might not actually see the little orange indicator on the folder, but you will see that Box is working to synchronize that. Once those arrows finish, we should be able to refresh on the left online and see that folder come up here. Just, right now I'm showing you these two different environments, but I don't want you to get the impression that in order to use Box Sync, you have to have this window open to the online. Once you get working in Box Sync and you are comfortable with that environment, you don't have to log in and open your online cloud account. There's still quite a bit you can use this for, but you won't need it specifically to work on your desktop. So let's refresh. It may be synchronizing other files. So you can see that file that folder that I dragged in and has a little blue check mark was created here, and it's created privately because that's the default. It's yellow, right? And it's created synced to my local folder. But if we create a folder here, and let's call this one test folder on box.com. And let's not invite anyone right now. Let's just make that folder. All right, so it has created that folder on box.com. One thing you'll notice though is that it has no little syncing circle, right? So that means that I can go all day long on my desktop and even tell this to, sync again and all this, and it will not sync. And that's because you created it in the cloud, and it does not want to assume that you need it on your desktop. So people ask all the time, why would that be? I mean, why wouldn't Box just synchronize everything? So it's really a question of, I guess, selection and control. I mean, you have your desktop and your computer, and everything that you do on it physically is yours and is under your domain. You created it, you have all access to it. But Box.com, because it is all in the cloud, it is not, even though it was created by you, it does not want to assume that it needs to be downloaded to your desktop. This is particularly important when someone else creates a folder and they've shared it with you, such as this one by Saray Das-Williams in a project group that I am in. And she did not share this, she did not allow this to be synchronized to desktops automatically. So think about an example like, I share quite a bit of information with our communications team. Say the communications team creates a folder that has really large image files and videos in it, and they share it with me. And if Box were to work where it would automatically download everything all the time, then as soon as they shared that with me, even without my knowing what was in that folder, it would start to download all of those videos to my desktop. And I may not want that much data downloading. One, I may not have the room to download it all. Two, but the third one, and it's the most, maybe the most important in terms of security, is, I mean, those are valid uses and unintentional consequences, but someone could maliciously create a folder, put a bunch of virus or malware in there, and if it downloaded automatically to your desktop, you would not be a happy camper, nor would other network users on campus, because that would, could also propagate from your computer. So that is a long explanation for the reason that files synchronize up from your computer and your own ownership, but they do not synchronize automatically down from your online account. And Roxanne had provided me with a nice graphic that kind of shows you, what that, just visually what that means. So when you are pulling down from the cloud, you have to decide whether or not to sync. When you are uploading from your computer, Box syncs automatically. So, and I will share that with you in the follow-up email. Okay, so I spent a little bit of time on that because it's one of those things that's very confusing to people, is why there is synchronization one way automatically, but not the other way. The other question that we get quite often is this my only copy, or is this a copy of this? So they are copies. They're not aliases. They are mirrored copies, and they do synchronize automatically if you have them set that way. So that anything you edit on your Box Sync on your desktop will be reflected online. Anything you delete will be reflected online. So they are copies, but they are tied together. So we're used to thinking of document copies as, I delete one copy, the other copy is still there. No, these are copies, but they're sort of like identical twins. If you harm one twin, you might harm the other twin. I don't know. That just popped into my head. It's, a little too much American Horror Story lately, but that is, you can come up with other analogies, but they are connected. Let's go on to creating and editing documents. So editing documents, of course, we don't want to just store information. We want to be able to utilize it and collaborate with it. And the nice thing, really brilliant thing about Box Sync is that it just uses your applications natively. So if I have, actually in my test folder up here, I'm going to open that test folder, and I'm going to actually drag some little sample documents I have to there. Get the screen out of the way for just a moment. All right, so I've copied these 3 files from my desktop. Actually, I've moved them. That's important to know. When you first set up Box Sync, when you drag files into and folders into this space, they will be moved here. So while they are copied up to online, if you are moving them within your desktop space, they are moved. They are not copied. So you can see those are no longer on my desktop. They are in my Box Sync folder. All right, so you can see you can upload just about any format. Here's a PDF, here's an image. I want to look at this Centennial Conference document. But any file that you can edit with a native application on your computer, you can open and edit on your computer. So even though this is connected to the online account through Box Sync and the wonders of technology, we can edit this file, save it, and then synchronize it with the one online. So I've got Spring Centennial Conference Which spring? Okay, so this is 2015 Spring Centennial Conference, speaker and worship schedule, March 19th, 2015. Obviously, there are other things I could change, but let's go ahead and just save that. And once that's saved, we could close it. And you see my little double arrows, they are circling around. They're showing me that it is currently synchronizing to the online version. And because we are in the online version as well, I'm going to go pull up that file and just to check and make sure that it was changed. Want to remember where that is. It's in a test folder. So we've got a test folder. We've got the March Centennial Conference. I don't know if it's showing that it was just updated. So it's generating a preview. And once that comes up, and it has not finished syncing yet, but once it does, we can refresh and we should see that change. It might even give us a little yellow indicator that says this file has been updated. Do you want to look at the most recent version? And so let's see, I'm not sure why it's taking this long to sync because it was a small change. Okay, now it's saying it's finished and not getting any indicator yet, but let's go ahead and refresh. And on that refresh, we do see those changes. So you know that it was synchronized and those changes were updated. Of course, if you are just working online and you've got Box Edit installed, you can edit them online as well. The beauty of having your online account, your Box Edit app, and your Box Sync installed on your computer is that you have the flexibility of editing in whatever way you want. I mean, the added benefit that all of this is now backed up for me online. I don't have to sit there and worry about connecting a hard drive to back these up or backing them up to maybe my iCloud account. They are constantly backed up to your Box account online. And I know you have 25 gigabytes of storage by default, but that can easily be extended to 50 gigabytes if you need. That 50 gigabytes is just essentially just a request away. If you let me know, I can talk to the Box team, and they have let us know that if we have power users, that they're happy to extend that storage now to 50 gigs. Beyond that, they do have group accounts. And I've talked to Jenny a little bit about this. Group accounts are more like departmental accounts, and they are much larger. They're starting at 100 gigabytes, and they are $200 a year, so it's $2 per gigabyte. But considering the functionality and the ability to access it from anywhere is incredibly useful. I mean, the other storage options that we have don't have the interface that Box has to interact with those files and have other people interact with them. All right, so that is essentially editing documents. I showed you a Word file, but you can do that with, if you have Acrobat Pro, you could edit this PDF. If you have this plugin file is coming up in, this plugin image is coming up in my PDF viewer for the Mac, so I could go in and I could make some annotations here if I wanted and save that, and that would also synchronize. I don't want to keep that. All right, not letting me delete, so maybe there we go. All right, Excel files. I mean, pretty much any file I have found can be edited locally on your computer and synchronized up to Box. And like I said, as they continue to update, I've just been amazed at some of the file formats that it can update. I have a recipe database that has like a really sort of esoteric file format, and a few versions ago it would not synchronize, and now it does synchronize those files. So they continue to add format. Ruth is asking about Publisher. I don't think that there would be any problem. I have not tested it myself, but any of the Microsoft products, I think Publisher is Microsoft, any of the Microsoft products, any of the Adobe products, Evernote files, HTML, just about anything we've found has been able to, you've been able to edit locally and synchronize up. But I'd be happy to test that with you, Ruth, at some point if we want to sit down together and look at it. I don't think it's a problem, but we can test it out. So let's look at some of the collaboration features in Box Sync. There aren't many, but the ones that are here are pretty powerful. So one of the things you can do, and that this is just locally on your own computer, is you can right click or control click on the Mac to look at your Box Sync collaboration features. This is kind of hidden within your contextual menu, but if you look at Box Sync, you see 4 of them. And one says copy box link, email box link, view on box, and lock. So copy box link is just what it says. It's going to create a secure link to this particular document, nothing else, and it is going to allow you to copy it wherever you want. You might want to embed it on a website. You might want to, for email, you've got the second one, but you might want to put it in, reference it in a report or document and still have that link be live in a PDF. That's what you would use copy box link for. Now keep in mind that unlike days of yore where you could in Dropbox make a public link, you cannot do that in Box, emorybox.com. You can send a link to anyone, but the only people that can access those documents and folders with that link are going to be the collaborators that you've specified for that folder. So just keep that in mind. You can email box link all day long, but the people who, only those collaborators, the people who you have allowed to see the contents of the folder and interact with those, whatever permission level they have, are the ones who can access that. Email box link, I use this all the time because we have a weekly staff meeting and I update our agenda every week, and then I just click on email box link and it opens up my my mail application. It gives me a secure long randomized link, and I go here and I send it to Candler IT. Very, very easy to do. You could also do that by going online and actually let me close this out and let me get back to my home folders. So I could go into Candler IT, sorry, let me back up. I could go into the subfolder IT Weekly Meetings, and I could go to the most recent agenda that I've already started for this Friday, and I could share it from here. I could create a comment that goes to all of these collaborators, Roxanne, John, Carlos, Stan, and I could say these are, the agenda items for this week, and it would do the same thing. I mean, instead of sending them a link, it would send them an email with a button that says, Jose Rodriguez has updated this document, click here to see the changes. And they would be able to either, comment back or look at it. So there are multiple ways to do the same things, whether online or in Box Sync. But I did want to show you those features where you can right click or control click and get to copy box link, email box link, view on box. So that would be if you, just like we just viewed my online Box account, you could click that. It would take you to the login page. You log in, it would take you right to the document. And then a very important one, particularly if you're collaborating with more than one person and often, is to lock the file if you're going to edit it. So a little while ago when I edited this file, you saw me just recklessly open this file and edit it. I just went crazy and I just edited it without even thinking about anybody else accessing it. Well, that's fine because in this case, there's probably no one else editing it, right? But, if you are working on a document that's, is going to be updated often, and or by a lot of people, then you want to make sure that when you edit that document, you lock it. When you lock it, others, you'll get a little notification. Others will not be able to edit it, even if they're collaborators with edit permissions, until you unlock it again. And I know this firsthand, it doesn't take a lot of people to be sharing a document. John Peterson and I were working on a network audit together, but the issue was we were editing it quite often. And so I didn't lock my file, and he went in and made some changes, and I went in and made some changes, and then we had a synchronization problem. The nice thing about Box is that you'll never lose anything. When Box has a conflict or an error, it will create a second file that says March Centennial Conference, parentheses, updated by John or JD Pete to, actually, I think it gives you his full name, so John Peterson. And so you'll have all the changes. The bigger problem is finding out where they are and then merging those changes back into one document. So do yourselves a favor, and when you're pretty certain that others might be editing a document with you, go ahead and lock that file and then unlock it when you're finished. Of course, that option and all other options like that are available on Box Online through the little more options drop down. So here you've got lock file, and then you would have the toggle to unlock file. So those are those collaboration features that are available in the drop-down menu. Again, they're exactly the same in Windows. This is just a mention again that even though the focus today is really on Box Sync and how you use your desktop application for Box documents, that don't rule out using Box.com, and don't think that using Box Sync obviates the use of Box Online, because as Roxanne is very prolific and really good at using the collaboration features online, and so she actually, I think, uses them quite a bit more. Well, I know she uses them more than I do, but I think she tends to use them more than Box Sync. And so she'll go online and she's creating comments. You can also go into documents like this and create those comments and tasks off to the side. So the document comes up in preview. All right, you can go in and, here we go. You can put comments and tasks here, right? And they will behave the same as they do here. Of course, assigning a task also allows you to add a due date. So if you are working with a project group, you're working with students, you can state when you want something due, and they will get a reminder and follow up and all of that kind of notification and management. Finally, you've got Box Sync available for mobile devices. I'm not going to really show these, but it is available for iOS. It is available for Android. It's available for BlackBerry. It's available for, I think, just about every mobile device. So, and the app works really nicely. So that is an option for you. Of course, like anything on a tiny little device like a phone, I'm not big on creating any kind of documents on my phone, but it sure is nice, particularly on an iPad, to read documents that you have from Box Sync, or to be able to show them and share them with other people and at meetings. I want to just lastly talk a little bit about permissions and use cases, because this is often where people, I think, could get more benefit, but they tend to just stick with the default. And for this, we're going to go back to online, because permissions are not something that have yet been added to Box Sync. But it wouldn't surprise me if they added it in the near future, because these features that have been added recently, you weren't able to have any collaboration features from your Box Sync desktop before. So I would look for them in the future. And I do get like a monthly digest of changes in Box.com that are coming on their roadmap, and I'd be happy to share them. At the moment, there haven't been too many that I've wanted to share broadly with the Candler community, but sometimes, like I think I did share one about favorites, that you could create favorites now online, and things like that that would change your life. I will make sure that you know about those. All right, permissions. Essentially, the permissions in Box.com are waterfall permissions. They're called waterfall permissions because they flow downhill. So the permissions that you have set at this folder level apply to everything underneath it, unless you specifically modify a document's permissions. So this 2013 meetings, if I click on it, you see all my collaborators here. If I click on this and show the meeting minutes from all of our IT Weekly meetings, you still see that they are all editors and I'm the owner in here. So any subfolder, any sub-item, the permissions flow down. Let's go back and I'll show you how you can how you could change that for different use cases. So one of the ways we can collaborate with someone else, obviously, is just editing a single document. Okay. So by default, Box gives collaborators editor permissions. Now this is pretty substantial because editors can do everything you can do except change ownership on you. All right. In Viewer Uploader, they can do everything except delete. Previewer Uploader, they can upload and preview, but they can't keep files, they can't edit, they can't delete, and so on. So for an individual one-on-one collaboration, like Roxanne and I editing a file together, generally I would leave it at the default. I trust her to edit it. If she needs to delete it, we would probably talk about it first. Of course, I want her to be able to download it and so forth. Say you're leading a project or a committee, say an interview committee or a faculty search. You might want to make others viewer uploaders because then they can do just about everything you can do, except they can't delete the file. But maybe you don't want them to edit it either, so you might give them preview uploader. Those files might be sensitive, confidential. You don't want them downloading and sending them to anyone else. You don't want them to be able to get a link and send them to other collaborators, and you don't want them to edit or delete. That is one that I would use. That one or just Previewer I might use for the next scenario, which would be something like sensitive meeting minutes. Highly confidential minutes or notes, you might make everyone a previewer. Previewer would allow them to view it online. They could not sync it to Box Sync. They could not download. They could not put anything else in that folder, and they certainly couldn't edit or delete those. And then for someone that's working with you on a project that doesn't even need to ever see the document again, you might just make them an uploader. And then that way they would just be able to essentially dump files into there. Or if you're working with a group of students and you're using this in a more curricular way, you assign something and you want everyone to be able to drop files into a folder, you might use Uploader for giving them the role to be able to assign homework assignments or papers and such. And then, of course, the one thing to remember about permissions is that you can actually mix permissions. So often you'll find that you have, let's see, you have your collaborators, but maybe I have someone outside my group that, if I look at this document quickly, just for the content, and we'll pick something out of it. So, okay, so investigate a secondary mobile Crestron. So maybe I want to give someone at Avive is our AV technical support group, so I can invite them to that folder and give them only a certain level of permission and then only to that specific document. So you can mix permissions, and just remembering that permissions always flow down. You cannot set, no matter how high someone's access is, you can't set their permission to the levels above them. And one way I know this for sure is that in Candler IT, I have my entire team has access to all these folders and all these files. But one level up, I have quite a few of my private folders that I don't share. And so these are then not accessible to them. And it doesn't show you the collaborators because there are no collaborators in at this level of all files. It's just the ownership that I have. That's it in terms of permissions and use cases. Of course, there's all kinds of things that come up where you might have questions. What if I wanted to invite someone from Minnesota into this one folder, but it's mostly Emory people? I mean, there are all kinds of situations like that. And of course, you can invite internal people, you can invite external people, as long as they have a box.com, free box.com account. And you can, and mix. If you have any questions about what permissions and roles would be best for what use cases, I'm always happy to do one-on-one with you all. And the last thing is just resources, and those are help resources and video tutorials that I'll send out in a follow-up email.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.